Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video. Want to talk about the Resident Evil Village system requirements, which are actually relatively tame, all things considered, given that this is probably, I want to say, the biggest PC game of the year thus far. Might be wrong about that, but off the top of my head, it's definitely one of my most anticipated upcoming games, and outside of, like, Returnal on PlayStation 5, this is probably my most anticipated game thus far this year, although this year has been relatively quiet in terms of big releases. We had like P5 Strikers, Neo 2, some pretty decent stuff on PC, but nevertheless, RE Village definitely a game people are really looking forward to. And now we have the system requirements, which all things considered aren't out of this world. I do like the fact that they have 3 tiers of system requirements, just because with ray tracing being a thing, that does, cause a little bit of a variety in terms of what to expect. They have minimum requirements, recommended requirements without ray tracing, and then recommended PC requirements with ray tracing. Now, obviously, it doesn't give you a complete idea of how performance is gonna work out, but Capcom's minimum specification is still expected to hit 60 FPS at 1920 by 1080 when the game's quality preset is set to prioritize performance, and that's probably low based on other games of this language. That was noted on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, but that does make a lot of sense. But given the requirements, it's pretty good. So let's get into the minimum requirements. You're looking at an Intel Core i5 7500 or a Ryzen 3 1200. That's relatively tame. 8 gigabytes of RAM. That's becoming more and more of a standard, so that's not too surprising. And then recommended GPU, or minimum GPU, let's change that, minimum GPU, GTX 1050 Ti 4GB, or an RX 560 4GB. Like, that is super, super tame, so it's not like that's crazy out of this world. So 1080p 60 FPS with prioritized performance, hey, that's pretty good. If a 1050 Ti or RX 560 can hit that, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world, just because I do think that's going to be considerably better than the PS4 and X1, if nothing else. Probably quite a bit better than that. It'll be interesting to see if the PS4 and X1 are going to be able to maintain a consistent 30, but we'll keep an eye on that. The recommended requirement's still pretty good. This is without ray tracing, and this is probably going to be if you're playing at pretty good settings and then also playing at 60 FPS. You're looking at an Intel Core i7 8700 or an AMD Ryzen 5 3600, which is a Ryzen 5 3600 is pretty, like, that's okay. The i7 8700 obviously a little bit of a higher end CPU, but 16 gigabytes of RAM is recommended. That's becoming more and more of a regular thing, and you see people talk about that with a lot of the pre-built computers that you're seeing on Amazon and the pre-built PCs that do go on sale. They do go with 8 gigabytes. It's only once you start hitting that $1,000 territory that they do hit 16, so that is something to definitely be mindful of. You can absolutely get away with 8 gigabytes of RAM, but you're just going to be seeing it more and more that a lot of games are going to be recommending 16, or at the very least 12 to 16 for at least the higher end games. That is going to be more of a regular thing going on, so keep that in mind. And then for the GPU, that is recommended NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070 or an AMD Radeon RX 5700. So 1070, relatively modest, all things considered. I mean, that is a few years old at this point. I want to say the 1070 came out when? Like back in 2014, late 2014, early 2015. So it's been quite a while for that GPU. So the recommended requirements are pretty tame, and then that is 1080p 60 FPS, by the way, but they do also add the caveat of frame rate might drop in graphics intensive scenes, so something to be mindful of there as well. And then they also do note, which is important, NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2070 or AMD Radeon RX 6700 XT required to support ray tracing, so they give you an additional tier of requirements if you are looking to run the game with ray tracing, which is very important because I do expect people to be wanting to do that. It was noted the 2070 and 6700 XT, probably like 4K 45 frames per second. RTX 3070 and 6900 XT, if you have something around that tier, you're going to be looking at higher frame rates at 4K as well. But we're talking about games with ray tracing at 4K. Being able to push 60 FPS, guys, that's not going to be an easy thing to do. I think a lot of people were of the mindset that because the PlayStation 5 was touting, 4K, ray tracing, 60 FPS, all that good stuff, well, actually assess the performance of every PlayStation 5 game and the performance settings that these games have. It's very few games that can do all of 4K 60 FPS and ray tracing. Sometimes it's 4K and then ray tracing enabled, and then you'll get 30 FPS. Sometimes it's not even 4K, but you'll have 60 FPS. You guys get the idea. It's hard to hit the trifecta of 4K 60 FPS ray tracing unless you have really premier top-of-the-line hardware. Maybe top-of-the-line is a little bit stretched, but you need a high-quality GPU. And in today's market, a 3070 is a pretty high-quality GPU, given the price point of it. But nevertheless, want to hear what you guys think. Super excited for Village. This is going to be a game that I think commercially does really, really well, and I see there being quite a bit of buzz for it. So, yeah, definitely a game I'm excited for. Definitely a game I'll probably be uploading some footage of, benchmarks, all that good stuff. But let me know all of your thoughts on Resident Evil Village in the comment section down below. Is it a game that you're going to drop a full $60 on? Or, in today's climate, you know, a lot of people do just wait on sales for every game that comes out, and I can definitely understand why. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you guys have a request for a future video, you can leave that in the comments as well, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.